Hey everybody, thanks for coming. This originally was going to be, what was it originally going to be, James? Was it going to be an AIGA social media club thing?
Yeah.
We didn't even know what it was going to be.
We basically said, hey, let's do something together. And
I'm going to leave this here.
That's great.
we've been doing a lot of stuff in this sort of like design for good type of thing. And then my firm and I've had some opportunities to do some stuff that we thought would be a cool story to share, and maybe we'd be able to take what I was able to learn and what we've been able to learn over the last few years doing this stuff, and maybe do something like it locally. But then we wanted to tie in with all the stuff that's been going on lately with technology in all over the world, and how social media and technology has really allowed individuals to have a larger voice together, to kind of tie it all together and sort of show examples of some stuff, and then and just open it up to a discussion and try to have just a cool talk about it.
So our idea was to do a couple of really short presentations where each discipline would talk about doing good in the community or for the world or whatever, and then we'd open it up, have some discussion, Q&A, and hopefully most of it would be Q&A. That way everybody's involved, and it's not just you hearing stuff. Maybe you learn something from someone sitting next to you or that sort of stuff. So with that in mind,
this table right here. This
That's
table
the trouble.
right here.
Yep.
He started it.
I don't doubt it.
So I'm glad this table's sitting so close to us.
That's right.
Okay, so it looks like I'm going first.
You are.
I'm doing the part of the Frederick Web Technology Group. This part of it is technology for good. The idea of using specifically maybe web technology for good, but maybe just general hardware stuff too, can be illustrated by something like the iPad. I remember when the iPad came out, how many bloggers, media reporters, and that sort of things, that people said, what a stupid idea it was. It's just like a big giant iPhone. What's it gonna be for? I personally felt a little bit negative about it at first because I couldn't, see past that initial, bit of it. That initial reasoning was like it looks like it's just an iPhone. I don't entirely get it yet. But over time, what did it mean? Okay, there was a 60-minute segment. I don't know how many of you got to see this, but it was a section on apps for autism, and the findings were showing how this, not specifically the iPad, although it focused heavily on the iPad, it was more about the applications that were designed to be used on the iPad. So in theory, these could be built for any tablet, but it just so happened to be that the iPad's, there. It's extremely usable, and it's easy for people to get and interact with. So these, and the quote here is that touchscreen apps were giving autistic people new ways to express themselves for the first time. And if you saw this segment, what you'd see is people who had previously almost zero communication skills with other people were able to find emotions, vocabulary words, and things like that, and communicate through this tablet. So we're not going to show the video, but Google it sometime and check it out. It's on cbsnews.com. And you'll see this whole world of communication being opened up to people who'd never, really had it before. Another example, especially with the iPad, is that Hewlett-Packard hosted a hackathon for autism, where they opened up the floor to programmers to all come together and develop applications, to develop code that would be helpful to people with autism. And the quote that I put up there was this fellow from Chico State in California who drove up because the software club heard about the event on Twitter, and I bolded that section on Twitter because that's part of the key information. In the past, before social media, before some of this open communication, how easily would have these guys found out about that event? They probably wouldn't have heard about it at all until it was, even if they had heard about it, it probably would have been too late. They wouldn't have been able to participate. moving away from the iPad and focusing on something that's more of a simple device. A lot of us use smartphones and touchscreen things, and my wife calls them space phones. But even just using a plain mobile phone to text can get you pretty far with Twitter. And the reason Twitter was such a big, important thing from a web technology point of view was that the programming interface made it available for almost anyone to very rapidly communicate and widely communicate with a big group of people. And when Twitter came around, the same way that people thought the iPad was dumb, when Twitter came around, people said, well, why would I want anyone to know what I had for breakfast that day? Or, why would I constantly send out messages about what I'm doing or where I'm going or, links that I think are interesting? What's the point of that, right? The point of it is anything you want it to be, anything you want it to become. And we saw that happen in North Africa, Now, those people did use text messaging, but the openness of Twitter, the availability of Twitter, and the limitations of the government's understanding of social media made it a lot harder to squelch this kind of communication, In fact, the University of Washington study actually quantified the use of social media in Arab Spring and showed that the number of tweets from Egypt went from 2,300 to 230,000 in the week leading to the resignation of the president there. So it was a big deal, and you can see how these people probably weren't talking about their Cheerios and stuff. They were probably organizing groups, things like that, which is not limited to Twitter. I know you can organize groups through Meetup and Facebook and other things like that, but this is just an example. Twitter is definitely a web technology, and I want to kind of focus on that. In this case, there's a real current issue use for web technology that brought about some sort of social good, These are the sources. We could put a link up to some of these links. We can put a page up on some of these links after we post. We'll all put some stuff together for the slides. Just a quick question. Has anybody seen that CBS News spot?
60 Minutes?
Yeah, the 60-minute spot on autism. Did you see it? Okay. It's a really good spot, and that's just one example. There are becoming more and more of that type of video available and stories available to show you what a big deal it is for some of the new technology people to get into information and be able to communicate that haven't before. If you've ever heard or seen a blind person use a tablet computer with VoiceOver, they have Braille devices. They can input and read content like never before. It's truly amazing.
You get the clicker.
I get the clicker now. I have toys now. I'm fine. Everything's going to be okay. All right, so I'm Amanda Changuris, and I work in marketing for Frederick Memorial Hospital. And so I'm doing a little deal on social media for social good from that perspective. And I'm actually speaking on behalf of Social Media Club of Frederick. So back in July, Frederick Memorial Healthcare System, we actually changed our name. We haven't made a big fuss about it yet because we've got some other stuff on the horizon, but we became Frederick Regional Health System. And healthcare reform law has had us shifting our focus from caring for sick people, which we will of course always do, to trying to intervene earlier, get people to take steps to become more healthy so they don't get as sick and, ideally won't need to come to the hospital, but people always will need the hospital. It's just a fact of life. But to shift that focus more to wellness, more to health maintenance. So things we've done along that line, we opened up the FMH Wellness Center. That's been around since 1987, 1988. that ballpark. That has a diabetes center. We do exercise programs, massage, Reiki, acupuncture. That's all right over at the mall. We do community outreach programs, smoking cessation, asthma education, and we also have a medical fitness facility at the Sportsplex. And that's for people who, you know, if they are concerned about their health, they've got, you know, maybe prediabetes, they're obese, they're concerned about starting an exercise plan, you can go there, you can be monitored. There are people there who know what to look for in terms of, you know, you don't need to fall off the treadmill, they'll catch you before you get to that point, that sort of thing. So it's sort of that I'm afraid to go do this on my own, but if you're here, if there's somebody there looking out for me, I can start working out and get you on the right track. So this is what we've been doing to work toward that social media for social good in the social media realm. We can all agree, I think, that health is a social good. When we're healthy, we're more productive, we're happier, we lead fuller lives. So we started, it's coming up on 2 years ago, I think, the Share the Health blog. It's our hub. If any of you know Beth Scalacci, she subscribes to, no, you have no idea who that is, right? She promotes the idea of a hub and spokes model. This is our hub. This is what everything feeds into. It includes health information, general stuff like how to store your fruits and vegetables, healthy tips that you can do in 5 minutes or less, promoting flu shots, how to pack a healthy lunch, that sort of thing. It also has health system information, so we just added a tab for construction updates because we're getting into another round of construction yet again at the hospital. So how we support breastfeeding for new mothers, descriptions of service lines like our wound care services. We also do preparedness pieces, storm preparedness when the hurricane last came through or when we had the big snowstorms. We did, you know, how not to have a heart attack when you're shoveling, those sorts of things, which can be helpful. Turkey fryer safety around Thanksgiving, pool safety in the summer, those sorts of things. And actually next week, we're kicking off the Share the Health Community Digest. It's a e-newsletter. It'll have a lot of the same information, but we're also going to add in local health-related events. We're having our OR open house coming up in a couple weeks, so that'll be part of it. 5Ks around the area. There's the turkey trot coming up for Way Station, so we'll include those kinds of events. And again, the construction information, because our neighbors and everybody else want to know what's going on with that. I actually brought some of these cards. They've got the Share the Health logo and a QR code you can use to sign up. My husband has them. If you guys are interested, he'll bring them to you, because he's good like that. So we use Twitter, we use Facebook, and we use YouTube primarily. Those are our spokes. Like I said, the hub and spoke deal. Twitter and Facebook feature feeds from the blog, but I'm also there almost every minute of every day to engage, because that's a big deal. I think we all know that as far as social media goes. Our YouTube channel features videos of FMH physicians answering questions. What are the types of bariatric surgery? Can vitamins lower my cancer risk? Preventing kidney stones. Sort of general health topics. I go to physicians and I say, what do you hear 30 times a day from your patients? What do they want to know? What are the basics? And then we put them up on our YouTube channel. So what I was really asked to do was to do a case study. Yeah, I know. Now getting around to the point. I love it, though. Go ahead. Getting around to the point. It was a case study on our pink glove dance. And so the history is that the original pink glove dance was a big hit on YouTube. I want to say 3 million plus views. 13 million. I don't have the number in front of me. I'm sorry. But it was in 2009. It was a hospital out in Oregon. Everybody put on pink gloves and danced around, and it was to raise breast cancer awareness. Everyone and their brother did a copycat version. I resisted it because it's a lot of work just to have some fun. Okay. I had plenty of other things to do. So this year, the company that makes the pink gloves had a competition, and you could win $10,000, and the winning hospital could allocate that money to a breast cancer charity of their choice. So we got it. That was the final, straw that broke the camel's back, and we ended up making our own video. So we were a little bit concerned about pink washing. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that terminology. It's a big, in the breast cancer community, people who are particularly survivors are very concerned about it and very vocal about it through social media. You put a pink ribbon on something and you sell it, and people feel good about buying it, and they feel like they've done something to, support people who have breast cancer, or they feel almost like, oh, I supported the cause. I don't really need to call and make my appointment for my mammogram, or I can, I did that. I'm sort of absolved from doing my breast exam this month. Those sorts of things. So, it's good. And where's that money going? Where, is it going to a national organization? Is it going to a local one? Is any money going anywhere other than that company's pockets? There's a lot of kind of conflict there. So we wanted to sort of walk a line. We included tips in our video, as well as just having some fun. We put up some partial, not full screens, but partial screens that had tips, schedule your mammogram, do those self-breast exams, talk to your doctor. We were trying to get a message in there as well. We also got the community involved. We got, you can see Coyote, of course, there. And Colonial Jewelers was in our video, Firestones, the Dancing Bear, downtown, and because we wanted to include, the hospital, we may be the ones providing the care, but we can't do it without the community's support. And we wanted the community to be involved and have this sort of the video starts in the hospital and ends in the hospital, but we go out. We actually got a Butler ambulance to, come to the hospital, and, we piled everybody inside, and, we had some fun with it, and that deal. So the social media efforts, you can see up there, we put a little ad on our blog, of course, posts on the blog. I write for Want to Dish, and I devoted a column to that. We were pretty constant on Twitter and Facebook with the updates, although I really tried not to be terribly annoying. I don't know if any of you follow the Frederick Memorial account, but hopefully I didn't drive you too crazy. Actually, Governor O'Malley endorsed our video. You can see his tweets there. He also put a post up on Facebook that said, go vote for him. We were the only hospital in Maryland to do a video, so I thought that was a pretty natural extension. It took a while to get his attention, but we got there. We also went for traditional media efforts. We did a press release. We did get WHAG and the Gazette to cover, the News Post. Never heard a peep. I don't know why. We purchased ads in the News Post, actually, and the Gazette, and we had radio mentions. We had a Key 103, 106.9 radiothon at FMH Crestwood. One of the weeks the contest was open, all the voting was open, so they mentioned it repeatedly throughout the day. And we promoted the video at all of our October events. We did the Pink Ribbon 5K and showed it there. We did a breast cancer symposium and showed it there. We had a viewing party at the hospital and showed it there. I showed it in the cafeteria and let people vote right there. I had 2 computers, one to play the video, one to let people vote. So, we pulled out all the stops. So, before we got to the traditional media efforts, we had about 3,000 votes. So that was pretty good for social media efforts alone. Our final vote total, although the final totals won't really be in until Friday, about 5,500. The winning video has about 60,000. So we didn't exactly win, to say the least. But the hospitals at the top tended to be gigantic hospitals. The one at the very top, before they cut off the voting from displaying, so you can't really see the final totals. But the leader going into Friday had 5,200 employees, 1 medical complex, and 6 medical centers. So we were a little bit, even if it was just employees, it wasn't obviously just employees, but even just starting with their base of employees, we would have had a hard time getting to that number. Yeah. So the conclusions, we didn't win money, but we did raise awareness, and there's some argument as to, okay, is dancing with pink gloves on. Okay, yes, you're aware that breast cancer exists. Are you any more aware that it exists? Do you care anymore? Are you going to take that action, change your behavior at all because this video exists? That's kind of neither here nor there for us, at least. We'd love to be able to measure that, but we haven't found a way to sort of get our arms around it. If you have an idea, let me know. We do awareness events every year, but they don't get like press coverage. We've done the breast cancer symposium for many years now. We've done the Pink Ribbon 5K. It's not the first year anymore, so the news coverage dries up. We did get some news coverage with this, so that's good. Social media kept us in the thick of the voting pack. We finished about 25th, but that's out of 139 videos. So, we did reasonably well. Respectable showing, I guess. The fact that social media is blocked at the hospital did not help. My sitting there outside the cafeteria, letting people vote because I have access to social media because it's part of my job, that helped. But I saw a lot of people, or I heard a lot of people saying, oh yeah, I meant to do that when I went home last night. Of course they didn't, because you go home and there are 10 other things vying for your attention, and I completely get it. Trust me, I can't keep a thought in my head for anything at any point. So, I understand, and we sort of fought that battle a little bit, but there wasn't a lot of lead up time, and they weren't going to just open up Facebook so that people could vote for our video, unfortunately. And again, social good isn't always profitable. We didn't do this to make money. This was to get a message out. Ideally, change behavior. I don't know if it's necessarily the most effective way to try to change behavior, but we didn't put any money into this video. The Frederick Film Office donated all of the time and resources to do all of the filming. They did all of the editing, getting it ready to go. The production was entirely a donated effort from their perspective, and we spent a good bit of time. We did a lot of choreography meetings and concept meetings and figuring out what we wanted to do, but we didn't spend dollars on it. And so we knew going from the outset that we weren't going to turn this into a profit-making video unless we brought in prize money. So that wasn't our goal, I guess is the way to say it. So there you go.
Cool. All right. Well, I think probably I have to tell everybody in the room what AIGA actually is, right? Does anybody know besides Chris and Mike? AIGA is the Professional Association for Design. It's the oldest and largest organization in the world. It's been around since 1911, so we're coming up on 100 years. There are 66 chapters across the country, one in China, and the chapter for this region is the Blue Ridge chapter. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about a project we've been doing for the last 3 years locally that has gotten us some national exposure, and then segue that into a little bit of what we've been talking about tonight in a project that I worked on personally in Alabama back in July that is ongoing. And it talks a lot about what Amanda actually probably could have done my presentation for me. But how do you define good, for one thing? What is good? And the bottom line. What is the bottom line when you're trying to do this work? It's not necessarily about the money. It's about the lives that you're affecting. But you can't necessarily do it for free because that's not sustainable. You can't work for free forever. So AIGA Blue Ridge is sort of, Frederick is our home base, and we stretch out to Gettysburg and Winchester and Martinsburg, and that's sort of where we are. We're a regional chapter. And our local thing, the thing that we started here 3 years ago, is called Clockwork. And Clockwork is basically where we round up a bunch of volunteers, photographers, copywriters, developers, and we take applications from nonprofits throughout the region. And over the last 3 years, we've done 52 projects for nonprofits throughout the region. And one of the projects, it's just very timely, that we worked on, that my firm worked on, was some signage and some posters for the Catoctin Aqueduct Restoration Fund. This guy here, George Lewis, this is what you need when you're doing this kind of stuff. You need this embedded local person who's passionate about the project. He kept the National Park Service and the state of Maryland, involved. Our Adopt a Stone program was never really about raising money to rebuild this thing. It was about getting the community to buy in and be part of it. Most of the stones were adopted, and the governor comes up again because Saturday he was there for the dedication. So that's an example of how something as simple as being in the right place at the right time and a poster and a sign can get the community buy-in, and the National Park Service said, sure, this is a project worth investing in. And so that's on a local level. And like I said, we've helped, there's a lot of these organizations, some of the people sitting in this room have worked on these projects, and it's great to have that one-on-one sort of local impact with these organizations that don't even understand what a marketing budget is. So that's really who we're trying to help with Clockwork, okay? But that has opened doors for me personally, and with my firm, we're really trying to work in this realm. And so Design for Good launched in Phoenix last week as a national initiative to try to support this type of effort on a local, national effort. How do you do this and sustain it? Because obviously pro bono doesn't mean for free, it means for good, but how do you figure out how to fund these projects, as some of them are self-started funded projects? So is anyone familiar with the Aspen Design Summit? Okay. A few years ago in Colorado, NGOs, business leaders, designers, architects, just people from a very diverse organization came together for 5 days to work on 5 specific problems. One of the issues they tackled was rural poverty, and from that they focused in on in Alabama in the Black Belt, and they started a thing down there called the Alabama Innovation Engine. And from that, they started working on identifying, local leaders, embedded people that would be interested in doing this. And I was really fortunate enough to be invited to come down and work on a project in July. There were 4 teams. Our team was charged with tourism for community regeneration. And basically what that means is, how do you use tourism to rebuild these main streets that are dead when there is no infrastructure? There are no hotels, there are no restaurants, there is nothing. There's no Motel 6. So how do you get people to come to this region, to put money into there so that these communities can start to rebuild themselves? So it was a 3-day thing. We came in on Thursday. We spent Thursday sort of touring the area, and this is my team. This is the team I was with, Studio 2. So basically, I like to walk when I talk, but I think it's important to understand that when you're trying to do these big, complex problems, it's not designers that can do it. It's not business leaders that can do it. It's not the government can do it. It's not teachers. It's us together. So this is the team that we had. This is Wes. He's a web developer from New Orleans. Bruce is an architect in Birmingham, Alabama. I don't know how I actually got to be there, but this is Matt. He's a designer from Nashville. Susie is just graduated with an architecture degree from Auburn University. Sherry teaches architecture at Auburn University. Gwen is a designer from Michigan. This is Steve Cox. He is a native of Alabama, but he owns the 2nd largest ecotourism company in the world. This is Bob. He teaches anthropology at Alabama University. He's in charge of the dig at Moundville, which is the oldest civilization in North America. And this is Bill, and Bill is the former CEO of Mercedes-Benz North America. He's the guy responsible for the first Mercedes ever built outside of Germany. So it's, again, I'm not sure how I'm in this picture, but Jeremy Kay was our facilitator, and he sort of was, herding the cats all weekend long. But it was really amazing because the time constraints were so tight that we really didn't have time to sort of bicker or fight over anything. We had to get to work. So Thursday we toured, and Friday we got to work, and we went through bajillions of Post-it notes. And so basically on Friday we were really trying to define, what is the problem? Is this really the right solution? Is this the right tack to take for this area? And so we were working and poor Post-it notes, millions of Post-it notes. We actually weren't as bad as like Studio 4, who I think might have used an entire rainforest. But this is Doug Powell, and he is the president of AIGA. And he is leading the charge for this Design for Good thing. And he was instrumental in helping to put together the summit. And his team in Aspen actually worked on this 5 for 50 that you might be familiar with, where the 5 tests you need to get when you're 50 years old to maintain health. That came out of that, and Doug's firm actually continued to work on that project. So that's one of the other successful projects that continued to work from Aspen. So I'm very fortunate because we had to do 2 presentations, one Friday night and one Saturday night, so I cheated. And these are the slides that we have. So the problem statement we ended up on at the end of day 1 is that rural growth needs a system. There's no system in place. There are a lot of people on the ground doing good stuff. Some of them are doing double work. Some of them are competing to see who gets to do that good work. And others, they're just out there. There's just nothing tying it all together. There's a lot of assets on the ground that are not working together as a cohesive system. There's no wayfinding. There's no way to find anything. We went to Coretta Scott King's house. You would never know that it was Coretta Scott King's house unless someone pulled you over and told you, this is Coretta Scott King's house. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Coretta Scott King got married on that porch. You can't find it. This is Teresa Burroughs, and her house is being turned into a civil rights museum. It's called the Safe House. 2 weeks before Dr. King was assassinated, she hid him in her house. And she touched me here and said thank you and everything, and I didn't wash it for like the rest of the week. It was really cool. I mean, like, this unbelievably emotional and amazing, the experience and the people that I got to meet. We went to this place called Perry Lakes. The Cahaba River that runs through Alabama holds 25% of the microbiology in North America. 25% of all microbiology in North America is in this river. There's a park here. These kids at Auburn University through the Rural Studio are building these really cool, they built this really cool birding tower because the birds come through there. So they're trying to get people down there to keep the state from chopping down all these trees. Right? So this is the another project that the kids from Alabama did, or Auburn did. 3 girls, architecture students, did all this themselves with whatever they could get donated and whatnot. But this is basically the crossroads between the museum. On this side, there's going to be a gallery. On this side, there is sort of the story. It tells about the civil rights and what was going on down there. So we identify what opportunities we have. We have all these really awesome stories that are happening, right? How are we going to get people there? How are we going to teach? How are we going to get people there to come and invest in this place? So our objective was we needed to develop a framework. We needed to figure out how to get an infrastructure to get all these assets working together. And what is the audience? How can we start this, right? So we landed on this idea of educational travel. The people that would need to come there. There's a lot of service component in this. You're not just coming there, you're actually coming there to be part of it, right? So you're learning about social change in the 60s. You're learning about social change going on now with these students in these colleges that are coming in. And you're learning history and you're having hands-on stuff. And basically we're getting the kids down there, getting them to tell the story. And using them to start generating income in these towns so that we can build upon it. It's like playing the game of dominoes. You place the first domino, and then everything builds off of that. So the idea is we've got natural history and biodiversity that we can use as an educational tool. We've got cultural assets. This is Coretta Scott King's house, actually. So we need subsystems to connect them, and this is where the technology aspect of it will come in. We need databases, we need networking, we need things where these organizations that are on the ground can start connecting with each other, because right now the money's going like this, and like this, and like this, instead of going like this and raising everybody up together, right? So we have money being invested all over the place, but not necessarily pulled together to have the most impact. So here were our challenges. I mean, obviously there are a lot of things. And what really made the team makeup really cool is because, about 1/3 of us were from out of town, right? So we don't have the baggage. We don't have that, so it was really cool because we could look at it from a fresh perspective. But we had to have the locals there to go, that's might be a little bit too much. I don't know, we might have to pull back there. So we had these ideas. and concepts of ways we could attack it. And we decided to focus in on this really specific area around Greensboro with Perry Lakes and Marion. There's a place called Pi Lab. Has anyone know about Pi Lab and Bike Lab? Okay, we'll get there. So we have these amazing stories, right, that we need to capture and tell before they're gone. I had to hear it firsthand. She's not going to be around forever. These people are not. We're losing the assets. So Bike Lab is downtown Main Street, Greensboro. These kids are actually learning factory manufacturing skills. They're building bikes out of recycled bicycle parts and bamboo. It's pretty cool. And so we landed on this thing that this stuff is happening only here, right? So we're going to sell this. And so that was basically the conclusion we came to on Friday. And we had to get up Saturday morning and figure out how we're going to do that, right? So we had a day to finish that up. And this is where we landed at. We decided that education travel was going to be the way. We were going to do it through a 6-day service engagement program for students, right? Private schools will have a service component. Instead of doing your service component somewhere else, come here and do it here. We identified the region. We're going to leverage the existing assets. So here's the experience. Before, you're going to get curriculum suggestions, collateral. In Alabama, you'll do the tours. Post-trip, you're going to connect. We want to have this. They become the champions for this. They get their friends interested. They get them to come back. So basically, and this was the best part, we all pretended like we were 16 years old or 15 years old. And day one, you show up in Birmingham. You go to the Civil Rights Institute, and you get on the bus. And on the bus, on your way down to Marion, where it's really the only place to stay in the area, you're handed an iPad. And on that iPad, it links back into your Facebook account, your Twitter account, so your friends back home can keep up with you. But there's also a blogging / type journal thing where they can enter the experiences that they're having and record that. And then there's video. They can capture video and have a video diary. So we're utilizing all these tools to let these kids tell the story. So day one, you go to the Civil Rights Institute. Day two, you're in Greensboro, and you go to the church where Dr. King was giving the speech when the Klan was trying to get him. And the church provides lunch for the kids, so the church gets the money for that. Then the kids rent bikes from Bike Lab and ride over to the Safe House. So we're trying to figure out ways how the money stays in the community instead of with the tour group, right? That's the key. The challenge was keep the money in the town. So the next day, some people might work at Pi Lab and learn about what they're doing there, learn how they're growing their own, running a business, learn how their culinary skills, the things that go into that. Some might work at Bike Lab. We tricked them on day 4. They go down to the beach on the Cahaba. They think they're going to be able to go canoeing and swimming, and they are. But then they learn about these projects that are being worked on by their rural studio, and there might accidentally be a microbiologist down there. So they might actually have to learn something that day. And then day 5 is a service day where you really do. You go in and you work. Maybe you're helping kids from Alabama archive these stories, capture these stories. Maybe you are taking photographs. Maybe you're working in the garden. Maybe you're building bikes. You're there working. You're hands-on. Day 6, you're on your way back, and you go to the Poverty Institute. And here, there's this place where you can sort of sign your name. And basically, you're saying that you're going to live a life of tolerance, and you're not going to live a life of hate. And you're going to take this experience back home. And as you sign your name, it floats off up into the ether with all the other people that signed it, like Bill Clinton and everybody else who goes down there that's super famous and did it. So that's sort of the experience. And I'll try to speed up a little bit here, but we identify the infrastructure. You have to rinse and repeat. There's no end. It's always in beta. We're always building on it. So what happens is after we start building this infrastructure, what's the next group that we can add onto? It's this biology group. We get them there. Then maybe there's enough money to attract a hotel chain to come in, build a restaurant, something. So maybe someone else on Main Street goes, all that money's going into Pi Lab, and there really should be another restaurant here on Main Street. I think I'm going to start a restaurant so those people have someplace else to eat, and I'm going to get some of that money. So we got to identify the partners. So right now, this is actually where we are right now. Sherry started working. We've had a town hall meeting. We're actually building a 2-day experience at a place called G's Bend that is not related to this. It's too far out of the way, but it's a good place for us to kind of just go in and try it out. So we're engaging. Really, the key is, we didn't want to have this, and Doug and Sam, Sam Shelton, Doug Powell, the guys who put this together, there was all this talk of this helicopter factor. We don't want to helicopter in and go, oh, look, we're here to help you. 2 days later, leave, right? The locals have to own it. We can support them with the strategy. We can hand them the strategy and say, we will help you in whatever way, but they have to own it. So we have to cultivate these local leaders. And then integrate everything. And then find out where are we missing? Fill in the gaps. It's always, like I said, it's always evolving. And then we go. So we're hoping to be in 2 years, we're hoping to have this going in 2 years. And then reevaluate it after a year and see, are we ready to put the next domino down? Are we ready to add the next brick? So there you go. So that was the hook. Every time one of us was talking about, Mom, you wouldn't believe what I did today, right? So we all were, it was on there. That's it.
Yeah, we'd like to open it up to questions, and maybe we could answer any questions you want. Joe, you had a few. No.
Sounds inappropriate.
Anyone really.
Is anyone doing this stuff? Is anyone trying? Is anyone working on these things? You're feeling frustrated because you feel like you're on your own. How do you? Anyone? Viewer?
Well, how do you justify it to say you're working for an organization? How do you justify things when you can't find your return on investment? I mean, the amount of time that goes in is going to pull away from doing something else. So what is the underlying thing that you should say to whoever has the purse strings or is in management that, this is why you should greenlight this project? It's going to take time and resources, and it's for something good. But a lot of companies ain't in it for good. They're in it for profit and to get as much out of their workers in as little time as possible.
Right, and that's a good point. And I'll answer from a technology perspective. In a case like the iPad application that I pointed out for use in autism, the application that you see in that video in 60 Minutes, how many of you use iPods or iPhones or iPads? Okay. How much does an app usually cost? Have you bought apps before?
99 cents.
99 cents?
$1.99.
All right.
Yeah.
$4.
That app costs $200.
Yeah.
The company that produced the app did it for good, they did it for a good reason, but they're making money from it. The alternative, though, okay, the next best thing before the iPad cost $8,000 and didn't really do that good of a job. Okay, so over time, hopefully, that technology will become less and less expensive. We've already seen it happen in that case, because you can buy an iPad for $600 or $700, throw a couple $100 in applications for it, and have something that's light years ahead of something that used to cost $8,000. So that technology company invested their time and resources and took a chance on making a product to make a profit, but in the process did something good for the world too. So I don't think it definitely does not have to be free,
No, I think that's a very key component of what we talked about, and with this national initiative that's just started rolling out last month, and Doug's leading the charge on it, and it really is sort of, because like clockwork, it really is, we're providing the work for free, okay? But the definition of pro bono is really for good, not necessarily for free. And so how do you figure out how to fund these projects? That's really the key. On a large scale, it takes corporate sponsors, it takes foundations, it takes grants. And businesses can get involved, and there should be no. And I personally been trying to do this work for forever, and really focus in on, this is where I want my firm. This is where we want to be doing. How do you sustain it? How can we make it a sustainable model so that businesses the firms can do this work, but not close their doors? I mean, you have to pay your mortgage, right? So that's really what I don't necessarily have the answer. I know people that have done it successfully. I have a friend in Connecticut, Rich, who has been able to leverage the government, the state government in Connecticut, that there's these problems that need to be done, and Rich's team can develop these strategies. And so it's sort of, for the lack of a better term right now, I really, this is where my mind's at. It's almost like the old medieval Renaissance thing where you had your patron and you were off working. It's partnerships, really. And so on a national level right now, we have Pepsi, and we get a National Endowment for the Arts, and we have, there's several others. I really feel bad for not knowing all their names right now, but they're sort of funding us to start to do this right now with this sort of design for good. And we're going to see where it goes. I mean, really, we're a week into it. I mean, but that really is one of the main pillars of it, is how can we, as AIGA, as an organization, as a group of people, how can we support those who want to do this, right? How do we train them? How do we figure them out? How do we get it so that if you are the client, basically the designer sees a problem and now becomes the client, right? Who's paying the bill then, right? That's the question. And so you have to find, it's partnerships. You cannot do it alone.
Yeah.
It can't be done alone. So maybe it's your business, whoever's business, it's their corporation going, this is going to help. Maybe it doesn't directly affect our profits, but it introduces our company to a new group of people, right? And so we're going to get that little ego stroke of being involved and feeling good about doing something, but we're also going to get exposed to a new audience. And so that's the other thing we have to remember. There's always sort of like this, when you're doing this stuff, there is that sort of part of the ego that feels good, like you were talking about the pink washing. Yeah, you feel good about doing something, but are you really? So it's not about falling on your sword and going, at least I tried. It's really about picking a place where you can work together and have success, right? Because there's no point in doing it if you're going to fail. So there's no magic bullet. I mean, it really isn't. It's each individual thing that comes along. I mean, yeah.
No, in your case, Amanda, I'm sorry, but you guys knew that there was no money coming back to you on this.
Right.
So
I mean, we could try and sort of finagle a return in terms of, okay, did we see a spike in calls for mammography appointments? But then it's October, so there's
right.
Traditionally a spike, and if it was a little higher, so it was sort of one of those things that we knew the measurement wasn't really going to, and we weren't doing it for money anyway. So it was, and I mean, to my husband's point, I happen to work for a nonprofit, and so money we bring in is good, but it just goes right back into our mission and providing healthcare. So, and we have we have a development arm that goes out and solicits money from the community and applies for grants and things like that. That's not my responsibility, so I don't have to worry about that necessarily. I just get to do the health promotion and wellness promotion and
right.
those sorts of marketing efforts. So I'm fortunate in that case. And we have a CEO who's completely behind this kind of shift in the healthcare realm.
And that really helps.
That makes a huge difference. Yes.
Someone.
Yeah.
Well, in terms of implementation, I've been in business 20 years, and to some extent, somewhat of a dinosaur in terms of the technology that's sitting in my lap today. Got the iPhone, got the iPad, got all that stuff, and working with nonprofits, which is about 75% of my business, they don't understand and or have the resources to dedicate a human to, successfully navigate this technology. It's very, very hard for them. I work with a lot of them, and trying to push them over into this technology, it's a battle. It's a constant battle. And they always say, well, that's for young people. That's what the young people do.
Right.
I can't tell you how many times I hear that's what the young people do. And, how do you convince and how do you take this information and not shove it down their throat, but show them that they can.
Beat them over the head with it.
Right.
Attempting to, make this something that's
Lifelong
digestible.
education. Yeah.
But, you've got people who really have just developed email sets
believe in
world.
that. Yeah.
Some of them don't even have current computers.
Mhm.
I mean, they're working on, ancient, things that were given to them. So you have the, how do you harness that and make it digestible, allow them, because if you do something like a Google search on any number of these types of, the QR codes, the Twitter, the Facebook, marketing, you get so much information that nobody can understand it. And then they go into geek speak, anything bad here, but the everyday folks, especially in the nonprofit world,
Mhm.
are never going to be able to figure it out. They have one source of thought, and that's whatever it is that they're doing. They don't want to go past that. They want their website up, and they think that's going to be the end of it, and they can move on. So how do you help us to show them that this is actually doable without having a dedicated human
Right.
to do it full time?
Right.
I know that I'm terribly fortunate. Actually, I have to give credit again to our CEO. He sent me to the Chamber of Commerce social media conference. I think it was its first year, and he heard about it. I had heard about it. I had asked my boss about it, but he came to us and said, "You're going to this, right?" And so, I mean, he set me up, and my job has evolved from that point to include more and more and more social media. So I'm in a very fortunate position, and I know a lot of people, especially in healthcare, are still trying to sell this, just like you are to anybody in a nonprofit. And I would say my advice as somebody who has not gone through it, so there's a certain grain of salt, I guess, is if you're doing any marketing at all, if you have any content on your website, any collateral materials, it can be reused everywhere. And so take that idea and whittle it down into a series of tweets, and if you have to, schedule them to go out. I don't like that. I like to be there. I don't like any automatic tweeting, except we have the feed from our blog. Yes, that's automatic, but I'm there when it goes out. So if anybody says anything back, I'm there. I can converse with you, because nothing drives me more crazy than a hospital or some other business that, they send out a tweet and you respond and it just goes into the ether and nobody ever responds back to you. Because I'm trying to have a conversation. I'm a talker, if you can't tell. But to repurpose, because you can, if you've got whatever your idea is, and if you're a nonprofit, you've got ideas, goals, something you're working toward, you can, even if it's short little, even if it's like a Tumblr style blog, very short and sweet, a photo and a caption, just throwing something out there, keeping that SEO building over time, and just promising yourself that you're going to do this tiny little chunk, and then if you see it working even a little bit, it's a vicious cycle, and you get completely sucked in, and then you never leave your phone anywhere.
I think it's helpful. I think it's helpful to think of things like that in terms of a sales funnel. Even if there's not an actual sale at the end, there is still a goal or a task that you want people to do. Do you want them to subscribe to a newsletter? Do you want them to buy a ticket to your raffle? Whatever the case. And so all of your arms of social media, if you can point back to the one goal, the most important thing that you want someone to accomplish, you can visualize it like the extension of your social media use or technology or whatever can be your outside goal is tipping people into that funnel, right? So that they end up working toward that goal that you had for them, whatever that one thing is. And when you can define that one thing that you want them to do, that you want your blog readers, your newsletter subscribers, whatever, what that one thing is that you want them to do, then it becomes really easy to take your collateral that you have, your brochures, your website, your things, and point them that way. That's all you really want them to do. And especially when you're talking to executives, if you can, I find it helpful to talk in terms of sales and marketing a lot more so than technology, because they understand the sales and marketing and they don't understand the technology. So over time, the tools are going to change, but the concepts don't.
Right.
And so that the concepts of tipping people in the right direction so that they accomplish whatever that thing is, they buy a widget, they subscribe to a newsletter, they read your blog post, they like your Facebook page, whatever. All those things are the, you know.
Well, I think the key there, right? So sales, right? We'll go to get back to the original. How do you get them to buy into doing it, right? We don't understand it. How we're going to do it, right? The key component of that, and what's really good about this type of media as opposed to traditional media, where you flood the world with ads, and unless the ad actually says go to this specific web address, and that's the only way you can track whether the ad got them there, you can pretty much find statistics that show that this is a direct connection, right? So you can go in and that's the other part of this, teaching designers and the rest of us to speak their language, because there's a specific language that these associations and these organizations talk. So if we can talk to them in terms that they understand and explain to them that this is a much more cost-effective way for you to get funding for your nonprofit, right? It's so much easier for someone to go here and give you money than it is for them to get something in the mail, sift through it, open it up, write you a check, and send it back to you, right? It's really about putting it down in that really basic, this is going to make your life so much easier, and demonstrating it with examples of how it's made other organizations' lives so much easier. And it doesn't matter how old you are. It's you hire you to get that infrastructure set up, and they have a few things. Once they get going, they'll get going.
I think Red Cross donations probably when they started doing the text messaging thing.
Oh, that was brilliant.
Brilliant.
Donations went up because you can splurge. The moment you see that ad, you just text whatever, and bam, they get $10. So
Yeah, and it's painless.
Right.
You don't get that. You don't have to go to their website even.
Well,
it's
that
right.
makes that brings up another point, which is making it super easy for people to accomplish whatever task you want them to do. You know, the Amazon system of the one-click. You know, if you set up an account your certain way and you can just click buy this now and it's a one-click thing. You get it, whatever book or thing you bought. You know, the next day you didn't. They removed all that part of the process of checking out.
Where you have to remember your credit card number.
Yeah, you don't have to remember a thing.
Yeah,
So that
you don't have to
the
think
easier
at all.
you can make it for someone to accomplish a task, the more likely they are to do it. Just like in the case of the Red Cross, when you can text a word to a number, and it's automatic. Or you can, you know, what are some of the Twitter campaigns where you send companies will say they'll donate 50 cents for every tweet.
Or for every follower they get over a certain period of time, or
and
those
for anybody
kinds
who in here uses Twitter, you know, how hard is it to follow somebody? You click follow and you're done. You know, that's
right.
It's
Even if you unfollow them later,
it's low-hanging fruit.
It's a donation that you're making. And I was kind of making fun holding this up, but this is my attempt at trying to make it easy for this audience. I figure most of you probably have a QR code reader, so if you're interested, you can go for it. But you know, that's the kind of thought process, is just make it as easy as possible.
Right. And that's I think that's going to continue to be that's talked about right now a lot when it comes to web design, specifically usability, making it super easy for people to accomplish their tasks. How many of us in here have been to a website where they might have something that you really want the information or the product, but you can't even get to that point where you can complete it, so you just give up, right? And you may end up being willing to spend a little bit more money on something if you can get it done immediately and leave. You know, Google takes a lot of pride in how quickly they can get you to leave their site. You know, if you think about it in that terms, you know, because once you accomplish their goal, you found what you're looking for and you're gone. If Google can get you to immediately leave their site, they're happy. And most people don't think of that way. They think of it in terms of trapping you, you know, like you're going to spend more or something.
I'd really like you to go to the hospital webpage and just spend all day looking at all of the wonderful copy that we've written over the past Lord knows how long. And my poor boss wrote all of the copy himself in 2003, and some of it is still from 2003. No, actually, the external website, we just redid the whole thing. I knew every word on every page. I saw every character. And I want you to all know it just as well as I do, but you don't need to. So I really do want you to find, if you need health information at that local level, I want you to find out what we can offer you if you need it. If not, I know you don't care that it even exists. And that's probably better. I don't want you to be sick. So, you know.
Yeah, grew up
Do you guys know of any specific application, fundraising application that has a social media component to it, like, with that, a nonprofit can put it on the website and also
Kickstarter.
the users
Kickstarter,
can pay
right?
through
Kickstarter.
That's the first one I think of.
Yeah, I think a Kickstarter comes up right away.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, Kickstarter is a really good one. There's a couple other ones that are out there, but Kickstarter's, it goes back to the original point of, how can you fund some of these things on a local level? Maybe you need to generate enough money to get a website designed for a client, and you can use Kickstarter where people can come in. It's like a venture capital thing, but basically the venture capitalists are us, and we're not looking for anything in return. We're going to give you $20 to accomplish your goal because we believe in it. And
Yeah.
so it's micro donations to accomplish your goal. So yeah, Kickstarter's like that, and it ties in a lot. My wife just did the Coleman 3-day, and very similar way of sort of tracking the progress. It's
You
a
can
much
tag
more,
it to your Facebook and all
and you
that.
can push it out to you can push
Yeah.
it out to your Facebook page and push it out through Twitter and stuff like that. Yeah, and so other people can share it as well. Like I've seen a lot of stuff where there's
Has anybody seen the iPod wristwatch band? It's brand new. It's like just came out. It's a little bitty, cool looking band. You put an iPod, what is it, Nano? iPod Nano in it, and all the buttons are still accessible. It's got this little aluminum enclosure that protects it. It's really cool. That was a Kickstarter project.
yeah. But to
Oh,
your
nice.
point, yeah, there are ways to share that. I mean, it's just like they're sort of web, what's the web 2.0, right? Is that what
I
it
don't
is?
know.
I don't know.
We can be
But there, yeah. So they're still
2.3.
like
Yeah.
they're there. They're on that cusp of their idea is to share it with as many people as possible, because if everybody gives $5, then maybe you get your project started.
Yeah,
So.
and the idea behind that is you're more likely to get, 20,000 people who give you $1 than you are to find one person who's going to write you a check for $20,000.
Yeah, but that's a good place to look. And there's other ones out there. They're not top of mind right now because Kickstarter is pretty much the one that always gets thrown out.
Yeah.
Question.
Sure.
As far as like with using all the different social media tools at your disposal, it seems like I've seen on occasion where people will use them almost exactly the same way, and it's almost like spamming all the different. So if you're following people on like all of them, you're going to get the same message 3 times. And do you think enough places really think hard about like how, in which case, for this particular aspect, for this time, for this tool, I want to use Twitter for this because it would make more sense to go out widely to like everybody, just anybody and everybody out there. But in this case, I only want to go to people that might know already about this. It's just to keep them informed. Do you think there needs to be more, focus on how to properly use the tools rather than just because I find it kind of irritating when you can see
Oh.
the same thing 5
Yeah,
different times.
and
Mhm.
Amanda
Yeah.
touched a little bit on something that I'm going to talk about, which is the hub and spoke idea. I try to show people that they need to chase down where their real audience is, because their real audience is going to end up collecting on, say, Facebook or Twitter or something like that. There's going to be more interaction on one place than another, and so that's where your focus should go. And the rest of the stuff can be trivial things now and then, pointers back to your hub. In the case of yours, your blog is the hub.
Yeah.
That's where everything goes on.
And the way that we determined that when we were getting started is everything else can live on the blog. We have, the blog that has the current post, but then over on the side we've got our Twitter feed with some recent tweets, our Facebook badge, our Foursquare badge, our
Yeah.
YouTube, widget over there on the side. So we've
Right.
got all those things, so they can all feed back in there. So that's why we made that the hub, and that's where we can kind of go long form, because and long form is it's usually about 400 words to a post, so it's not Yeah, I know it's very long, right? But for a blog, that'll work for a post. So sometimes a little longer, sometimes a little shorter, it depends on the topic. But that's sort of where we can, and then we can point people there, and that seems to work. But that's the reason we set it up that way. We didn't have a blog following. We
I see. But you
to
guys,
start with.
no,
but
you guys get it though. I think what you're asking might be like how are we doing anything to teach more people that's the right way to do it?
Mhm.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I was just
Because-
asking because it seems like some companies and things don't really take into
Don't
account
get it.
how to funnel your information, how to disseminate your information in the proper form.
Right.
Use the
And
proper tool.
go is it's going to be just like all media communication has been since media has come around. We still flip on the TV channels and you'll still see horribly annoying commercials, you know, from companies that don't get it. You know, they don't get it that when that commercial comes on, you want to change the channel. You're not going to listen to the pitch. And I think those companies are still gonna do that. They're just using different communication tools.
Mhm.
They're gonna annoy you on Facebook so that you don't follow them.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so,
And,
what, yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that's my point.
Yeah.
That you give them whatever tool comes out 5-10 years from now, and they'll still
Yeah.
do it. They'll still
Yeah.
not get it.
I mean, you honestly, it's the client has to get it and want to get it, right? And want to get better at it. I mean, it's the same deal with, and we, in an old term, it's like the brand standards manual. Here's how you handle your identity, right? Well, it's the same thing. Here's your social media standards. And so here's some examples of how you might tweet, right? And so if we have something coming up where we want to promote it throughout the organization on a national level, you know, we craft about 5 or 6 tweets and we send it out to a listserv and say, hey, here's what we'd like you guys to tweet. Here's pick and choose what you want, right? So if the client can't do that themselves, you know, then it falls back on your role to sort of guide them that way. I mean, they're not going to listen, they're not going to listen. But, you know, that's another way where, you know, you're generating value to you, right? You're educating them, you're providing a service to, like, here's how we do it. So it's always the same things. I find that we're always delivering the same things, just the deliverables are changing, right?
Yeah.
Another, I think, a good example of sort of reaching out and teaching like that is the Chamber's social media conference, because they'll have sort of those 101 level, like, welcome to Twitter. This is what you do. You don't auto DM anybody when they follow you because that's annoying.
You don't do that.
And what, you do? No.
I think she did when I followed her. It came
No,
right back.
yeah, it came right back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I turned it off after that. No, I've never done that, I swear. But those kinds of things, they actually do a really nice job of getting people started. They're trying to move a little more into, you know, the, like, 200 level courses and 300 level, that kind of
Yeah,
thing.
but
But there's
a big
always
turnout,
somebody.
though. I've been there for 2 years in a row now, and there's
Mhm.
a good turnout. There are a lot of people who are brand new, and
Right.
they want to know the basic core beginner stuff.
Actually, they did a boot camp last year, which I thought was a great idea because it was a pre-conference, like, welcome to Twitter, and this is what it is, and this is what micro-blogging is, and, you know, all this, you know, here, why don't we set up your account now so then you can sort of get ready and be sort of familiar.
Yeah.
So when you come to the conference, we don't have to start with square one. So and actually, I guess Beth Scalacci, who I've already referenced, she did the boot camp for them to get everybody started, and she's a great resource here locally. If you need somebody to make the case, I think she's a good resource
She's a
to
good one.
make the case for you.
She literally wrote the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did actually. She,
It's a good book,
It's a good
too.
book, yeah.
It's a good book.
So there you go. Give that to your clients.
I have some of her books in my car. No, seriously, I already signed because I use them in my classes. So if anybody wants one, I think I have at least 5 of them out there, just in case.
Yeah, it's customer service. It just goes back to customer service again. You just, yeah. I mean, and some clients aren't going to listen anyway, but
Yeah.
Anybody else? I think we're getting a little bit short on time. We're going to try to wrap things up in case everybody wanted to visit a little bit more. If nobody else had questions. I did want to thank a couple people for contributing and allowing us to have some refreshments tonight. I know Garab, you pitched in for the event, and so thank you. Thank you very much, everybody.
woo!
Conrad helped us out tonight. Thank you very much. Really. Our goal, especially with the Social Media Club events, is to keep things as free as possible, and that's why we structured the invitations like that, so anybody could come for free. We were not trying to twist any arms, but we do appreciate the contribution, so we can have some things here. And nobody's in the room here from the hotel here, right? the hotel gave us this place, the room, the projector, for the evening, and so I wanted to thank them, and we're gonna write them a nice note and stuff about it. But we were really having a tough time trying to come up with a way to do these kind of events without charging money for them, and that's tough to do. The spaces around Frederick are hard to come by without spending quite a bit of cash. So, who am I? I'm missing someone else that you put money in, didn't you, Amanda? Amanda and her husband put money in.
Well, you
Thank
guys
you
can
very
have the
much.
chocolate chip cookies. Now.
Yeah.
Yeah, take it.
Score. If he didn't eat them all already.
And who did I miss? Did I miss someone else? There was someone else. Kevin Bruce, who could not be here. He wanted to come. Kevin contributed to tonight and couldn't come, so that's even like.
Yeah.
So thank him
Poor
on
guy.
Twitter or something.
Yeah.
Awesome. With that, I think we'll wrap things up. If anybody, there's still coffee and cookies and everything.
Eat
we'll visit
cookies.
for a little while, and then we'll tear things down.
Great.
All right. So thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks for
you,
coming.
everybody.
Yes.